Hello. Thank you. That was quite a pregnant pause. What a fine cultural evening we're having. I'm going to lower the tone. I'm Clive Anderson off the radio and the telly. In case you're thinking, oh, it's fantastic, the Foreign Secretary's turned up in person, but... And this bit's called Loose Ends on Tour. Loose Ends is a radio programme which I present on Radio 4, 6:15 to 7 o'clock from central London every day, or every Saturday. And here I am, through the magic of recording it yesterday, to present this programme. And I've been looking forward to this, though, because I always find, however old I get, and I have got pretty old, coming back to a school always makes me feel a bit anxious. I always feel as though I haven't done my homework, or something explained. So I'm as nervous as a West Country badger with a chesty cough, or I'm sweating like a 17-year-old au pair girl at first day at Silvio Berlusconi's house. But so what we... So I'm not really in showbiz. I was a lawyer. I was a criminal barrister for many, many years, and it is good to see one or two familiar faces. Good to see you out and about again. But I used to represent, regular people and, try and get justice for them. But it didn't fulfill me, so I became a chat show host and got to interview the good, the bad, and the ugly, or Sir Jimmy Savile, as we used to call him. But so what we're going to do now is we're going to sort of recreate a sort of an interview situation. And then we're going to do a little bit of just actual sort of comedy performing. And I'm going to do that with somebody who's an old friend of mine, and he may be known to many of you here. He's very, very talented, very, very funny. He's an actor, he's a comedian, and a local celebrity. Please welcome Hugh Dennis.
Hello. Hello, Clive.
So I want to start actually with an apology, a sort of public apology. Because many years ago, I was being interviewed once and the people got onto a football game that I play in, and we both play in every week. And the journalists are only interested in the famous people that you play with, so you can name dozens of them. And there's a few comedians play in the game. Yeah. And at the time, it has to be said, you weren't. Now you're the most famous person in the game. But at the time you weren't, as famous. You had Angus Deaton and David. I was running through the players we went with, and and Hugh Dennis, of Punt and Dennis, and he looked a bit sort of. And I maybe got his name because he's sometimes. I can't remember if he's called Pete Dennis, but that's his real name, but he calls himself Hugh on television, or his real name's Hugh and he calls himself Pete. And anyway, so I explained. Then when it got written up, it said Clive Anderson says he plays football with one out of Punt and Dennis, but he can't remember which one it is.
Yeah.
So that's how that came about. Yes.
I heard that interview.
Yeah.
Well, it's very confusing because my real name is Pete.
Yes.
So my middle name is Hugh, and I became Hugh at the point when I joined Equity.
Yes.
And my then agents wrote to Equity and said, look, it was because there was another Peter Dennis. Mm. And my agents wrote to Equity and said, look, could our Peter Dennis be called Peter Dennis? Because the other Peter Dennis is... I was 25 and he was 70, I think, at that point. Yeah. And they said it's very unlikely that they'll get confused because they're not in the same area and all this kind of stuff. And they wrote back, actually wrote this really sweet letter, said, no, of course, under normal circumstances, that would be fine. But your main problem is that the other Peter Dennis is the chairman of the Equity Name Change Committee.
So your name...
I became Hugh at that point.
So your name is Peter Hugh Dennis.
PhD.
Yes. So did your parents have ambitions for you? Other than...
I don't think they did, strangely.
Yes.
But it is a bit odd. But my mother-in-law... So a lot of people call me Pete. My whole family call me Pete.
Yes.
And my wife calls me Pete. But
it's your name, Pete.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. There's nothing unusual.
No, that's right. It is my name.
Yeah.
But when I met my wife in a sound recording studio in Soho. It's for making commercials and things. And I went in to be the voice of a talking fromage frais, as you do.
Yes.
And I met Kate. So she knew me first as Hugh. And so she called me Hugh for about 3 months. And she thought, this is ridiculous. This is his whole family call him Pete, so I'm going to start calling him Pete. Then she decided she had to tell her mother that the person she thought of as Hugh was in fact called Pete. So we came down here. They live in Stoughton, which is just the other side of Harting. So we came down here to tell her mother that in fact my real name was Pete.
Yeah.
And her mother is profoundly deaf, right?
Yeah.
So when Kate said, look, actually, his name isn't Hugh, it's Pete, she said, I didn't think he was called Hugh anyway. She said, I thought his name was Hugo, right? And then Kate, my wife, said, well, it's not, Mum, he's not called Hugh or Hugo, his name is actually Pete. And brilliantly, because she is very posh and very lovely, and I love her very much. After Kate said, his name is Pete, she just looked away and she went, I prefer Hugo. That's fabulous.
Well, I was going to ask you about your career rather than
my name,
things that go on at home, but between you and your wife and your mother, although they sound fascinating. So I suppose what you've been doing recently is obviously Outnumbered, which is a sitcom, which is about 4 or 5 series, but you're not making any more. I'm sorry to break it to you like that, but has it ended, or are you carrying on?
I think there are supposedly Christmas specials, although suspiciously not one this Christmas.
No.
And we're meant to be doing one-offs and things. But as a series, it's finished.
Plenty of people will know, but say there's a few people who don't know. So you play his father and husband, and then you've got
confusingly, his name is Pete.
Pete, yeah. Was that put in for your benefit to make it easy for you?
It was, actually,
yeah.
So I would turn around at the correct moment when somebody called my name,
Yes, good. So there's husband and wife, mother and father, and 3 children who at the beginning of the making this, they were quite young. And the story we've always been told, and I just check it out with you.
Did you not realise that children got older as the...
I very much understood that, but except in animations, the Simpsons remain the same age.
That's true, they do.
But in when it was first started, it was put about that you, the grown-ups, learnt your lines properly and in the ordinary way, but the kids kind of improvised what they had to say. Is that how it worked, or is that how it still works?
It does work. It did work that way in the first few series for the very simple reason that none of the children, well, the oldest one, but the 2 youngest couldn't read. Yeah. So there was no point in giving them a script.
Yes.
So they therefore had to improvise. And that changed as the series went on.
Yeah.
And Claire Skinner and I, who, my wife, pretend television wife, were told to learn our lines, but not very well.
Yes. Oh, that's handy.
Which I would have done anyway, to be honest.
Yeah. But was that fun to have the kids will be delivering you their own lines or slightly mucked up lines, probably getting big laughs out of doing things slightly oddly? Did that throw you?
No, not really.
No.
No. No, it was an odd thing. You never quite knew what was coming. But the best improvisation we did, I think, was when we were supposedly in an airport, and we were having to go through security. And Ramona, who's Karen, my youngest child, was. We were waiting, and we were looking at all the other passengers to see, whether they might be dangerous or whatever. And she suggested that the way to get rid of murderers, this just came out of her mouth. Yeah. So she said, why don't we just kill murderers? She said. Yeah. At which point, I said, just sort of improvise. I don't think that's very good because that lowers you to their level, doesn't it? And she said, well, surely the thing to do then is just to strap a knife to the front of every murderer, put them in a very small enclosed room together so they walk into each other in the dark.
Yes.
Oh, I was quite scared at that point. It was But I was glad it was a problem her real parents had to deal with.
Yes, So I feel duty-bound. I must ask, I'm sure you must have been asked this by a lot of people. As you play that character, rather sort of confused dad, not really in control. Is that what you're like as a real person, as a father?
No. I don't think so. I think I'm a lot more commanding.
Yes.
Than I appear to be in that programme.
Yeah.
But crucially, because I only have 2 children, so we're not...
You're not outnumbered?
We're not outnumbered.
That's the vital thing, isn't it?
It's all fine,
Yes, okay. Now, so that's a sitcom. I mean, you've got a big body of work because you've got a big body, come to that, but you're outnumbered, but you're also well known for being on Mock the Week, which that must be on its sort of 95th series by now.
It's in its 13th.
So that's, broadly speaking, it's a topical comedy panel show.
Yeah.
Now, which of those two areas of life, acting, doing lines and taking account, or just being smart-ass funny about people in the news, which do you prefer doing?
I prefer doing whichever one I'm not doing at the time.
I see.
Essentially,
Yes.
is how it works.
Yeah. Because
I find Mock the Week enormously stressful,
Yeah.
actually. I find,
Really?
whereas Outnumbered was enormously relaxing.
Yeah. Well, it's got quite a reputation, Mock the Week. I suppose that when Frankie Boyle, the Scottish comedian, it used to attract quite a lot of headlines because he used to come out with, outrageous jokes, rude jokes. Now, how did you feel about that? Did you feel this is great for the show, or do you feel, oh God, we're going to get into trouble here and it's nothing to do with me, it's just somebody sitting next to me? What was your attitude to that when that was going on?
I think I probably thought it was good for the show to start with. Because the stuff you saw was nothing to compare to the stuff which was never broadcast.
Yeah.
But he's a brilliant comedian, Frankie Boyle.
Yeah, no,
and he's also a really nice guy. What I used to find hysterical about Frankie is that to keep himself calm, he did Tai Chi every morning in a park in Hackney.
Yes.
Imagine he's sort of doing all that stuff. But he's a lovely...
No, I've done stuff with him. He is very funny, but he likes to identify a line and then go beyond it and then say goodbye to the line and carry on to make jokes about the Queen and people's looks and stuff like that. But then he left. Does that make it a more relaxing show or make it less exciting that there's going to be something dodgy said here?
It makes it a much nicer show to do, and I think it probably makes it an easier show to watch. Actually, I think it's probably happened. I don't think it would be in its 13th series, in fact.
Now, with my in-depth knowledge of you, having known you for years, and as well know, you're what in Scotland they'd call the son of a manse, because you're the son of a vicar, and he's in fact a bishop. Your
he
father
is, yeah.
So do you ever have any trouble from your family when maybe you use a rude word or you're involved in a show? Does everyone remember
No, not at all. My parents are incredibly supportive to the extent that I did Spitting Image for years, and one of the voices I did in Spitting Image was the Archbishop of Canterbury. Right now, this was at the point when my dad was the Bishop of St Edmundsbury in Ipswich in Suffolk, and so supportive are my parents that my dad, in what can only be described as career suicide, told the Archbishop of Canterbury very proudly that I was his voice on Spitting Image.
Yes.
And this is why I love the Church of England in a way. So if you're one of the longest serving bishops, it's got nothing to do with anything else, it's just how long you've been there. You go into the House of Lords as a Lord Spiritual. So this happened to my dad for the last 5 years of service career. And you process into the Chamber of the Lords on the finger of the Archbishop of Canterbury. So you had another bishop here and my dad here, right?
Yes.
Processing in like this.
On the finger?
On the finger. It's a really, that sort of medieval thing.
Fingering.
I can't pretend to explain it. Anyway, so I was up in the gallery with my mum and my brother, sitting up there, and they were processing in. This was George Carey, right? He was walking in like this, right? And he saw me. He saw me in the gallery, and I thought, oh no, oh no, oh no, he knows, oh no. Right, and I was cowering, and he literally did this. He was just processing in. He saw me. He dropped my father's hand like that, and he went.
Oh, from memory, I thought you were going to say he gave you the finger, but
Bishop's finger, yes.
Let me go right back to the beginning of your career, because like a lot of people, you've snuck into show business via being in the Cambridge Footlights, which is a dodgy way to do it. But having graduated from university, you had a proper job.
I did.
You worked for, was it Unilever?
Unilever, yeah.
So what were you working on? I don't know, Persil or
I was in charge
Pot
of,
Noodle, or what did you do?
Yeah, Pot Noodle is not a Unilever brand.
Is it not? So, sorry, you haven't lost.
I think everybody here knows that.
Yeah. Coleman's mustard, is that one of yours?
Coleman's mustard was, but it wasn't at the time, Clive.
Oh God, you've got an in-depth knowledge of that.
Because I still have a Unilever pension, so I like to keep an eye on it.
So how long were you a Unilever corporate man?
7 years.
7 years. So what side were you on the sort of...
Deodorant. I was in charge of UK deodorant.
Oh, right. God, you could make some sales tonight, couldn't you? This is the hottest theatre I've been in for years.
I was the brand manager of a product called Lynx.
Lynx?
Deodorant body spray.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Hey? Yeah. Now we're talking. Forget Spitting Image, forget Outnumbered. Lynx.
Anybody who's got a teenage son knows the
God.
smell of Lynx.
Oh, we absolutely
It pervades
do,
the bathroom for...
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was great. I did all the adverts, and I was quite sorry to leave. Actually.
Yes. So what was there a big break? Was there a thing that took you from being an executive to being a stand-up comedian or
Not well, other than working with you, obviously.
I had you on a radio program.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
But what actually happened?
Is that the thanks I'm getting? Is that
Yeah.
you're just?
Well,
but
listen,
moving on to something more
listen,
interesting.
You forgot
Yes.
my name in an interview about football.
I didn't forget, John.
No, what happened was, so I was doing this job for Unilever, and Steve Punt and I were in the same year in the Footlights, and he wanted to carry on doing stuff. So we agreed that we'd become a double act because it was less frightening than doing it on your own. And so I started doing clubs and things like the Comedy Store and Jongleurs with him at weekends. And after about a year, Jasper Carrott came down to the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
And he was doing a live show on BBC One and said, would you boys like to write a sketch a week? You may not get on, depends how much stuff I've got. But if I'm short, you'll get on, and if I've got enough stuff, you won't get on.
Okay.
And Steve knew how big this break was, because it was 13 million viewers on a Saturday night at that time. And he went, yeah, that's fantastic, it's a Saturday night, that's great. And this is where I was at. I thought, that's fantastic, it's a Saturday night. That means I can carry on working for you.
Yes, yeah.
And
very sensible.
I did for another 7 years.
And then you were in a show, I'm trying to work out at the time, because you were in a show called The Mary Whitehouse Experience. It was you and Steve Punt and David Bedales and Rob Newman. Yeah. Was that radio and television or just...
Radio 1 and BBC 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was that after you'd been on Jasper Carrott? Or?
Yeah. No, well, at the same time, actually.
Yes. So this is when your career was really taking off.
And I left Unilever just before Mary Whitehouse went on television.
And why was it called the Mary? Was it just to wind up Mary Whitehouse?
Yeah, it was, And to confuse viewers. And the first time, it was a sort of slightly culty BBC Two show that was quite rude. Really.
Yes.
And we got a letter of complaint after the first week from a woman who wrote in saying, I turned on the Mary Whitehouse Experience to view what I thought would be a documentary about the life and times of Mary Whitehouse.
Yes.
I was shocked to the core by what I saw.
But then you were doing well with those programs, but you've suddenly sort of blossomed into all these various things. Was there another sort of big stepping point? Was it Mock the Week? Was it?
I suppose so. It was a sort of combination of Mock the Week and Outnumbered, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But Outnumbered, I'm absolutely certain I'm in Outnumbered because Andy Hamilton, who writes Outnumbered, and I went on a veterans football tour to Rimini.
Oh, yes.
And we were the last two to arrive, and we had no friends, and we had to share a room for 3 nights.
Yes.
And mysteriously, 6 weeks later, I got cast. I've got info on him.
What went on over those 3 nights?
Yeah, exactly.
This is a very odd form of casting tour. Yes. I think I was supposed to go on that tour. If only I'd gone. Yeah. If only I could have had a sitcom. Never mind. Look, I was going to watch the clock so we didn't go on too long or too short, but we thought we'd ramble like in this conversation, but we thought we'd augment our performance by doing a classic sketch or two, and I don't know if we've got time to do 1 or 2, but to make it easy for me, because I don't have the acting skills of you, in this sketch, which comes from Beyond the Fringe, I'm going to play an interviewer. I think it was Alan Bennett in the original production, and your bit is... which is
Peter Cook,
Peter Cook.
And to keep you company, I'm also reading it, because I knew that Clive...
Well, it's a long
Obviously,
sketch.
I could have learnt it, but I can learn things, but not very well.
Well, I was going to play the child, and I was just going to be, making it up as I went along.
Yeah.
So, some of you may remember this, and if you do, I think it's well worth doing. It's a nostalgic piece now, especially the opening line has a figure in it, which at the time was a big figure, and now doesn't seem so much, but nonetheless. So this is from Beyond the Fringe, it had been about 1962 or 3, so I'm not going to do an Alan Bennett impression. The great train robbery of over £3 million continues to baffle the British police.
Good evening.
However, we have with us here in the studio this evening the Deputy Head of New Scotland Yard, Sir Arthur Gappy.
Good evening.
I'm going to ask him just a few questions about the great train robbery.
Good evening.
Good evening, Sir Arthur.
Good evening.
Sir Arthur, I'm going to ask you just a few questions about the great train robbery, if I may.
Good evening. Well, I would like to make one thing quite clear at the outset. When you speak of a train robbery, this in fact involved no loss of train. It was merely what I like to call the contents of the train that were pilfered. We haven't lost a train since 1946, I think it was.
Yes.
In the year of the great snows, we mislaid a small one. They're very hard to lose, you see, being so bulky. A train is an enormous thing compared, for example, to a small jewel. A tiny pearl, for example, might fall from a lady's neck onto the grass or the gravel or wherever she was standing, into the sea even, and disappear underwater.
Yes.
Whereas an enormous train with its huge size is a totally different kettle of fish.
I think you've made that point rather well there, Sir Arthur.
Thank you.
Now, who do you think may have perpetrated this crime?
We believe this to be the work of thieves. And I'll tell you why. The whole pattern is extremely reminiscent of past robberies where we have found thieves to be involved. The telltale loss of property, the snatching away of the money substances, it all points to thieves.
And you feel that thieves are responsible?
Good heavens, no. I feel that thieves are totally irresponsible. They are ghastly people who go around snatching your money.
I appreciate that, Sir Arthur.
Well, you may appreciate that, but most people don't. If you like having your money snatched, you must be a rather odd fish, I think.
Who do you think is behind the criminals?
We are, considerably. Struggling to keep up with the wretches.
And who do you think is the organising genius behind the crime?
Now, of course, you're asking me who the organising genius behind the crime is.
You're a man of very acute perception, Sir Arthur.
Well, let me say this. We think it is a mindermast.
A mindermast?
Yes, a mindermast.
What exactly is a mindermast?
Well, a mindermast is the code word we use in New Scotland Yard to describe a mastermind. We don't like to use the word mastermind as it depresses the men that they're up against that, so we call it a mindermast in a futile attempt to deceive ourselves.
I see.
But we are using the wonderful equipment known as identikit. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yes, that's where you piece together the face of the criminal, isn't it?
Not entirely, no. We are only able to piece together the appearance of the face of the criminal. We can't actually piece the face together. I wish we could. Because, of course, once you've captured the criminal face, the other criminal parts are not hard to find. The criminal body is situated directly beneath the criminal face, joined, of course, by the criminal neck. But through the wonderful system of the identikit, or identikey, as the French so foppishly call it, through this system, we have pieced together an extremely good likeness of the Archbishop of Canterbury. Just like him, in fact, perfect.
So, His Grace is your number one suspect?
Well, let me put it this way. His Grace is the man we are currently beating the living daylights out of down at the Yard.
I see.
Yes.
I see. I don't see the script there. That's it. No, but he's still your number one suspect.
No, I'm happy to say that the Archbishop, God bless him, no longer resembles the picture we built up of him. He has changed, I think, for the better. He thinks for the worse. Difference of opinion.
I believe some of the stolen money has been recovered, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
And what's happening to that?
Well, we are spending that as quickly as we can. It's a short life, but a merry one down at the Yard. Good night.
Good night. So that was... So that was written by Peter Cook, and Hugh, or Pete as he may be, was playing Peter Cook. That's why I got all the best lines. So well done. Have we got time to do another? I don't know who I'm asking. Yeah. All right. Okay. So yeah. This is another one where you're playing Peter Cook again, and this time I'm Dudley Moore. So
you're Dudley Moore.
But my performance as Dudley Moore won't be that different from my performance as Alan Bennett. To be honest.
This is yes. Yeah. And this is called Psychiatrist, and this was from Not Only But Also. So Peter Cook is a psychiatrist.
Shall I knock on the door to start?
Yes, no, good idea, yeah.
Shall I even be standing up?
Well,
because there's a bit of acting involved here.
Yeah, okay, stand up now.
Okay.
Hello, Roger, come in.
Oh, hello, Dr. Braintree.
Hello, come in.
I'm sorry I'm late.
That's quite all right. How are you, Roger?
Very, very well, thank you.
Would you like to sit down, or would you prefer to lie?
I'll sit.
Well, right. Sit right down and tell me how you are in yourself.
Well, I'm feeling... That was my acting, by the way. Well, I'm feeling rather in the pink.
Well, this is terrific, Roger.
Yes, funny really. If anyone had told me that by talking to psychiatrists it would have helped me at all, I would have laughed in their faces. But I can honestly say our little chats together have worked wonders.
Well, I'm so glad, Roger. I mean, of course, a lot of people are instinctively very suspicious of psychiatry, and possibly, with reason, but it can help at times.
I really think it can, because I've got so much more self-confidence now.
Yes.
I'm much less self-conscious in the company of the opposite sex. Which I wasn't, you know.
You're less inhibited, are you?
Oh, I should say so. The wonderful thing is really that I'm in love.
That's wonderful news, Roger. You're in love.
Yes.
With a woman?
Yes.
Well, so much the better. That's absolutely terrific.
It's so wonderful to be in love. I can't tell you the absolute joy I have.
Well, love is a wonderful thing, Roger. I've been there myself. It's a wonderful thing.
But she's this girl, this creature, this goddess. She's so right. Everything is so wonderful.
You really click together, do you?
Oh, yes, it's marvellous. But the only trouble is that apart from this wonderful, light-hearted love that I have, I seem to be saddled with this tremendous, burning sense of guilt.
So you have guilt as well as love. Well, this is unfortunate, Roger. Sex is the most healthy and natural thing in the world. There's absolutely no reason at all to have any guilt about it. I mean, why would you have guilt about sex, Roger? It's a lovely, beautiful thing, Roger.
Well, it's not really as simple as that. It's rather difficult to explain. I don't really know where to start.
Well, begin at the beginning. That's always the best place. What is the girl's name?
Stephanie.
Stephanie? That's a lovely name, isn't it? Well, it's my wife's name, in fact, isn't it?
Yes, it's Stephanie.
Yes, it's Stephanie.
No, it's Stephanie.
Yes, it's Stephanie, Roger.
Yes, it's Stephanie. It's your wife.
Oh, you're in love with my wife, Stephanie?
Yes.
Well, this is a perfectly understandable thing, Roger. She's a very attractive woman. I married her myself. I don't see why you should feel upset about that.
Well, she's in love with me.
Well, again, this is perfectly understandable, Roger. You are a perfectly attractive human being, as I've told you over the past few weeks. There's nothing repulsive about you at all, is there, Roger? There's no reason why a highly sexed woman such as Stephanie shouldn't fall in love with you. And I must explain to you, Roger, that I'm a very busy man. I have very many patients to see. I see rather less of my wife than I should, and I think it's very understandable that she should seek some sort of companionship outside the marriage. I don't think that's unreasonable at all, Roger.
But she's not seeking anything outside marriage, and nor am I. Dr. Braintree, we want to get married.
Well, again, I think that's perfectly understandable. After all, you're two young people in love. You want to manifest your love feelings within the confines of a bourgeois society through marriage. I think this is quite appropriate.
But the awful thing is I should be feeling so grateful towards you for what you've done for me, and all I can feel is this burning jealousy. I can't bear the thought of you touching her.
Well, of course you can't, Roger. I can understand that. One is tremendously possessive about someone one loves. Tremendously possessive. It would be unhealthy not to have this jealousy reaction, Roger.
But don't you see, I hate you.
Of course you hate me, Roger.
I hate you for being so near her.
Of course you hate me, Roger. You love to hate the one who loves the one you love to hate to love the one you hate. This is a very old rule, Roger. There's no need whatsoever to be ashamed about it. It's absolutely reasonable.
Don't you understand? I want to kill you.
Of course you want to kill me. Because by killing me, Roger, you eradicate the one you hate. This is a perfectly natural reaction, Roger.
You are so reasonable, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
You understand it all so much. You're so logical. I'm going to have to kill you now.
Well, Roger, this is a little inconvenient because I have another patient at 6:30 and then there's somebody else at 7 after that. I wonder if you could make it sometime next week. Could you make it early in the week, say?
Well, when do you think?
How are you fixed on Wednesday morning, say 9:30? Would that be convenient?
Oh, yeah, that's perfect, actually, yes.
Right, well, if you could pop along at 9:30 and kill me then.
Once again, Dr. Braintree, I'm amazed. I really am so grateful to you, for showing me the way.
Well, it's what I'm here for, Roger.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and with a bit of luck, this should be the last time you need to visit me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, there. Now so our task was for me to interview Hugh or Pete or Peter, and to do those little sketches. And we have two other jobs to do here.
Yeah.
One, we're sort of going to announce in a moment who's coming on next. We've got another great performance coming up. But while they get ready for that, we also want to. Is it nagging, do you think, or reminding people, or telling them what they have to do?
Housekeeping, I think.
Housekeeping. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll go over to the bishop's son for the announcements.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
The first thing is raffle tickets. There apparently is a board with all the winning raffle ticket numbers on it just outside the theatre. So you, check as you go out for dinner to see if you've been lucky enough to win anything. And if you have, you've got to collect your prize from the main marquee. Most things are easily transportable, apparently, although the Fortnum's hamper is a bit heavy to lug if you've won that.
Okay, so there's also two auctions, and you must bid in the auctions. There's a live auction, which we're having in due course, and also a silent auction. So in a silent auction, you know how these things work. You just write down your bids. I think there's little bits of paper, and in the course of it, there's a huge number of things. I hope they've all been donated or stolen in some way too. But you're riding a Bentley, you've got Pucker Films, 1 week's work experience with a film company, practical yoga, there's hundreds of different things. Well, I say hundreds, I'm lying, obviously. It's 31 on the silent auction. And in the live auction, has any of you got your eyes on for the live auction?
I haven't got a list of what's in the live. Oh, yes,
you haven't, yeah. There's
I have now.
a load of manure. You can bid on that.
That'd be lovely. I know that's the raffle prize I'm looking at. I haven't got any notes at all.
A signed Katie Mellower concert guitar. You can get that.
Does that have the tax paid on it
I
already?
think it's probably a week in a private chalet, and I've got tips about live charity auctions. There's no wrong price to bid for in an auction at a charity event. Because if you go to a real auction, you can sometimes get carried away, pay too much, or you miss out. There's no wrong price in a live auction at a charity thing. Because if you get a bargain, you've got a bargain. On the other hand, if you bid 5 times what it's worth, you came here to support the charity anyway, so just bid. And the other thing that I think is useful, be the first bidder on first time. It's very, very, very rare that the first bid, actually, obviously it sometimes happens, but if you very ostentatiously make the first bid, it doesn't half help things go along. So
do you know what we're meant to have done, and we have got this slightly wrong? They're meant to be setting up behind us, aren't they, why we do this bit.
Well,
That's why we're doing this bit.
I know, but I thought by saying this is what we're...
You thought they'd come and start setting up?
Yeah, I don't think they've got much to set up. I think the setting up has become easy. So
we'll just
do you want to say who the musical act
No,
now
because
I know who it is, yes, I do. It's 3 young men, considerably younger than us, and they're going to be playing guitars and drum, and they are Charlie Miller, Tom Pocock, and Tom Archer. So let's give them a round of applause.